So last but not least, for all you ravers out there who haven't been able to leave the 90s where they belong, our next speaker will give you some alternatives to those glow sticks that are sitting in the back of your closet. Alex Beim.
That's me. It's a shot from somebody in a 30-meter crane, and that's one of the projects that I'm working on. I kind of want to tell a little bit about my story, you know, what I do and why I do what I do and how I got to do what I do. In 2006, I was online, you know, was checking on blogs and stuff like that and working in advertising, and I saw this opening for works for a music festival in Italy. And it was called Building Interactive Playgrounds, and the call was to create, to submit interactive installations for this big music festival in Florence. So I started working on some ideas, and you know, the deadline was like 3 days later, and I just had this idea of making these big inflatable balls, like 7 feet in diameter, with lights inside that would light up every time you punch them. And say, you know, what better way to, you know, what better installation that throw the installation at people instead of having the people going to installation. You know, they answered back, we love your idea, but we can't really accept just a Photoshop image. So I took this as a challenge and I started working on it. And, you know, over a year, and with help from a lot of people, I worked on many iterations of what is, you know, now called Zygote Interactive Ball. And a year later, and after many failures, I got a prototype, and I got into my house and I inflated it and I threw it in my backyard, and I invited my kids to play with it, and it was a huge local success. My kids loved it. You know, this thing was lighting up, it was bouncing around and stuff like that, and it worked. So after that, I resubmitted to the same event in 2007, and I won this time. So they flew me to Florence. And it was an amazing experience. I took 13 zygotes with me. I was just able to make more 3 of them. And I actually lost my luggage for 4 days before the event. But everything was good. You know, at the end, you know, I got my stuff the day off the event, and I threw it to people, and just the reaction was amazing. And since then, I've been just keep on developing the project, and now we're doing like a really big events in Europe, where we have like not 4,000 but 40,000 people in big stadiums, and we have 20 zygotes, you know, dropping from the ceiling, and people dancing and partying and you know, enjoying it. So I came back to Vancouver, and you know, after we signed that contract with this big party, I decided to, you know, quit my job, which was in advertising, and have been in advertising for 10 years, and started working on other projects. You know, this is another one called Graffiti Wall, which is a big screen where a whole bunch of people can go in, and then using these little graffiti cans or pens can just draw, and we use it for events and festivals and stuff like that. So we've used this a lot for enrichment, for the opening of the Oval, for the Winter Festival. And through working with Richmond, we got a really good relationship with the event organizer there. And then she told me, you know, we're opening the Olympic Oval, and then there's going to be the ribbon cutting. What can we do? And I said, well, let me think about it. And I pitched her this idea of making this interactive installation out of the ribbon cutting, you know, like creating these little wands that people could just, you know, run around and play with, and it would project on a screen or a wall these ribbons that you could play with. And then I was at the time sharing my space with a designer, and then I started working on the graphics engine for this, because it's all happening kind of like in real time. And I said, hey, what? And she was working on the branding for the Olympic Goal, and I said, hey, what about pitching them this idea of using these ribbons for the branding of the building? So we did. We worked on them more on the idea. And she did some designs, and we pitched it to them, and then I ended up coming up with an idea for interactive installations that ended up being the branding for the Olympic Oval building. So we made this graphics engine, and we're able to export high-resolution images of those ribbons, and then create all like stationery and posters and all that stuff like that. And then, but then I was lucky enough that I could actually do the installation. This is one of the only photos I have, because when I work, I usually don't take photos. But we had a whole, like, I can really say thousands of people coming in and grabbing these wands and running around and playing on the wall and stuff like that. And also had a sound component, so people were really interacting with the brand, you know, where playing with these ribbons and generating music. This was my last project at DDB. After years and years of trying to get to do something that I used to work in web, advertising and online, I wanted to do stuff that was in the real world. It was my last project was something that actually happened in the real world. We created this interactive ad for Sunright, and then had a video camera and LCD screen, and people could see themselves made out of fruit. And this was a project we made for Illuminate Yalta a couple of weekends ago, where it was just really simple. We just had this sensor with a little ball down there. People will put their finger, and it will pick up your heart rate, and then these big inflatables will light up according to your heartbeat. And then it was really cool. But 4 months ago, I just realized something, and this is the kind of stuff that I played with when I was a kid. I played with taking toys apart and putting things together and making stuff. And then today, I actually do the same. Though there's a kind of like a big 30-year gap in the middle where I guess it's life, the time that it took me to go back and realize that. The way I think today, the way, just like sketching horrible drawings and putting them on the wall, is exactly the same way I thought I was thinking when I was 6 and 7 and 8 and 10. And then somehow I kind of forgot about it. And now I can kind of, everything is coming back and I'm just realizing why I do what I do. So these are actually not my sketches, but my sketches were kind of probably worse than those. But that's what I would do as a kid. I didn't have many friends. I didn't play with many toys. I would mostly just look for stuff and then put stuff together. I would just make planes and make boats. And it wasn't really about the making of stuff, but most about the experience of when you make stuff, what it feels like to experience it. This is a photo that I love of Zygote that was taken in Italy. And just the faces and those people and the way I think the feeling about it is exactly the kind of feeling I want to create in people with the projects that I make. And then, so 4 months ago, I just realized that what I do is actually that's the way I felt when I was a kid, and that's the kind of things that I like. I never dreamed of being a pilot. I never liked like planes or anything like that. I just liked the fact of making something that could fly and see it, and then actually, and I was the one who made it. And then, so what I see today is like pretty much I just do what I was doing when I was 8.